Channel 4's Dispatches documentary on Russell Brand is a media hit job. And as a filmmaker, I wanted to show how this documentary is so misleading that it devalues the testimony of the accusers, misrepresents evidence, and uses deceptive techniques to bias public opinion. And to be clear, I'm not a fan of Russell Brand. I don't like his comedy, his flowery language, or his shameless womanising. It's also not a stretch of my imagination to believe he may have committed these crimes. So you could consider me the target audience for this film, and yet it still couldn't convince me. As per any good story, we need a good villain. And what better villain than the 2000s version of Russell Brand? A womanizer constantly boasting about his sexual exploits, a narcissist who harassed comedy legend Andrew Sachs on live radio, and a man who broke off his marriage to Katy Perry over text message. The Dispatches team had to do very little to defame Brand's character further, but they couldn't help themselves.
What about, I like it if you are a fella and you do have a dinkle, etc. It is quite nice. Them blowjobs, what you get sometimes, never suggest it. If the girl does it, they ain't suggested it. I like them blowjobs, right, where it goes in their neck a little bit. I would never suggest it. I'm not suggesting it. It's their idea.
This is taken from Brand's stand-up comedy special. And knowing what stand-up comedy is, one of the necessities of that special was to make people laugh. And comedians can do this with truths, exaggeration, or outright lies. What Dispatches does, however, is take that joke at face value. And you might think that this joke is completely relevant because it falls in sync with what Brand is accused of. But interestingly, the only allegations that fall in sync with Brand's stand-up comedy come from the one accuser that works at Channel 4.
Alice, who alleges she'd been sexually assaulted by Brand 8 years earlier when she was 16, now had a career in television and was working for Channel 4.
I was sat up in the bed up against the headboard, and he forced his penis down my throat, and I couldn't breathe. It was just choking me, and I couldn't breathe. I was crying, and he said, "Oh, I only want to see your mascara run anyway."
Them blowjobs where mascara runs a little bit.
Although I think Alice's story should be taken seriously, its validity is the most concerning of the four women. By remaining anonymous, it's unclear to what extent she was both an accuser and a Channel 4 worker. Was she involved with research, sourcing materials, editing? And was this correlation between Brand's comedy and the allegations predetermined? And while this may not be a smoking gun, at the very least, this mindset of literal jokes leaves almost every comedian susceptible to accusations.
I bought a rape alarm because I kept on forgetting when to rape people.
The title of the Dispatches documentary, In Plain Sight, refers to the revered investigative book on Jimmy Savile's life and lies by Dan Davies.
It'd be very nice to meet you one day, Mr. Jimmy Savile, just,
Well, if you've got a sister, you could meet me by bringing her along.
I mean, I haven't got any sisters,
I
but
don't usually meet fellas, but if you've got a sister, that's okay.
I've got a assistant called... Part of her job description is that anyone I demand she greets, meets, massages, she has to do it. She's very attractive, Jimmy.
This clip of Brand fraternising with Jimmy Savile is a haunting soundbite, but only in the frame of what we know now. Obviously, Savile is one of the most depraved and disgusting men to walk the planet. But in 2007, when Brand interviewed him, he was a public hero. And if anyone associated with the man is to be demonised, then how do we explain the forgotten BBC show Jim'll Fix It Strikes Again in 2011?
Oh, thank you, and welcome to Jim'll Fix It with me, Shane Ritchie. Now, many of us will have grown up watching the late Sir Jimmy Savile sitting in that chair right there, answering letters, dishing out surprises, and making dreams come true. And tonight, I'm going to get to do it, so my dreams already come true.
You know, what you've got here is a meticulously researched story that has got all sorts of accompanying evidence in all sorts of different ways. It's been worked on for 4 years. Yes, Brand denies it, and it is important to make that clear at every turn. But nonetheless, is it any surprise at all that women don't come forward when they are so comprehensively disbelieved by mainstream quote-unquote media figures?
Now, I wanted to hone in on the most serious accusation of against Russell Brand, and the story with the most apparent evidence of criminality, hoping to answer the question, does the evidence hold up? To recap Nadia's story, her and Brand met at the after party of his new show, Brand X, on May 27th, 2012. And soon after their meeting, they started sleeping together. 1 month later, on July 1st, Nadia claims she was at the star's home in LA. After the attack, Brand blocks the exit before she manages to escape to her car. And shortly after, she receives a text message.
I'm sorry, that was crazy and selfish. I hope that you can forgive me. I know you're a lovely person.
Nadia replied later that morning.
Now, I believe dispatches held the full message on screen for a split second before highlighting just a couple of sentences to cover their own tracks. That way they could say that viewers had access to the full context of the message. Now, I'd like to show how the implication of the full version and the abridged version differ greatly.
Do you know how scary you are when that glazed look comes over you? When a girl says no, it means no.
It would be fair to interpret this as Brand forcing himself upon her in some way. And the famous, when a girl says no, it means no, is at minimum associated with sexual harassment, and at most rape. The unabridged version, however, provides clarity.
You scared the shit out of me. You're right, I am a lovely person, and for you to take advantage of me like that is unacceptable. You have a problem, you need help. It's dangerous that you think you can get your own way all the time. Do you know how scary you are when that glazed look comes over you? When a girl says no, it means no. Do I have to go and get myself tested? Last time you asked me condom or no condom. When I say condom, that doesn't mean it's optional. You don't have the best reputation. I pride myself on being safe and trying to make the right decisions. Obviously, this was a bad one.
This message from Nadia doesn't seem to refer to her. It refers to Brand not wearing protection when asked to do so, which is still really dangerous, immoral and selfish behaviour that deserves some kind of recourse. But it's clear that dispatches made an executive decision to obscure context. It's the kind of signalling that builds distrust with an audience, and unfortunately that distrust is reflected onto the women who shared their stories.
Charlotte Wace at the Times came on board on this towards the start of this year. So she's worked on it a shorter time, but in that time she has been extraordinary. And what she was able to do was find a level of evidence with this one particular woman who we've called Nadia, that I have a level of evidence so strong. I've never seen anything like that on a Me Too story. I've worked on a number of Me Too stories, and almost invariably you're always scratching around saying, but the problem is we can't prove this, we'll really struggle.
The Times and the Sunday Times provide these screenshots of texts between Brand and Nadia. However, credit where credit's due, YouTuber That Umbrella Guy noticed something.
The Times, the Sunday Times, Channel 4, they present this as undeniable proof that, well, he did something horrible, this person had to go to a crisis center, get assistance, when really this is about getting themselves checked out. Now, when you look at this too, this is not disclosed at all that there are any edits, but when you look at that, you'll notice there is an edit line here. That is a copy and paste. I mean, it is clearly seen when you blow that up. And you can also see that this is a copy and paste because, well, it looks like everything's been bold-faced, but the reason for that is because it ended up missized. When you missize something, essentially, it takes away clarity, unless you go in and you spend a lot of time with it.
So dispatches can't be trusted to portray evidence honestly. and the Times newspaper has possibly dubious text messages. What are we left with?
That same day, Nadia went to a local treatment centre to report what had happened. She underwent tests, was given antibiotics and emergency contraception.
They took my underwear and obviously the samples.
Nadia gave staff this detailed account of the incident.
This is Nadia's report from the treatment centre in LA. Allegedly, it was disclosed to Channel 4, The Times and The Sunday Times, but in the Dispatches documentary appears almost completely redacted. Although what's legible is harrowing and upsetting, with Dispatches deliberately decontextualising the earlier text message, it makes it harder to believe that a condemning rape allegation is within the document if it can't be shown on film. Nadia states in the report that the situation was complicated, and without assuming the ways in which it was, this isn't yet a smoking gun.
If that is what they've got after 4 years of a joint investigation by the Times newspaper and Channel 4, those 4 flimsy allegations from women who choose to stay anonymous, so there is nobody that can counter their version of events. It's nobody who can say, well, hang on, I was there on that occasion.
Whatever you think of him, he's entitled to due process, every bit as much as his accusers deserve to be taken seriously. These are grave criminal accusations which now demand a police investigation to determine if they meet the legal bar for charges, prosecution and a possible trial. But some of the language we're seeing online, including from many journalists, describing the accusers as victims and survivors, implies that Brand's already been convicted of a crime when he hasn't.
I wanted to address the rumours put forward by comedian Daniel Sloss. And when I say rumours, I'm not trying to diminish anybody's account. This is just factually what they are. Second-hand anonymous claims that cannot be verified, because the people who originally made them are not coming forward.
This is scary, this is intimidating. And if I'm scared of this and there's almost no consequences to me, what do people who have suffered and been subject to his alleged behaviours, how must they feel? I could not say something.
You didn't say anything. You didn't say anything for years. And you still won't tell us what claims have been made or who said them.
Questions that should have been asked about Russell before he was employed for certain things, I do not believe they were asked.
And this is the really frustrating part. What exactly did you want employers to ask him? Are you a rapist? Or should they have been aware of the rumours within the comedy circuit? The rumours that people outside of that circuit weren't aware of? Or did they know all along, but didn't care? Russell Brand's outlandish personality charmed us into accepting otherwise unacceptable behaviour. But is that really the case?
You went through a crazy time in Hollywood.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was mad, wasn't it? But they sort
Keeps
of
happening.
I know, but they sort of allow you to behave in a certain way, don't they? I mean,
yes.
You are allowed. You're enabled to
Enabled
behave.
is a good word.
Yeah.
Yes, I suppose if you're in a position of some success, people will let you be a nutter as long as they're making money out of it.
Yes.
Was it not the institutions such as BBC and Channel 4 that pimped audience members and contestants for him in order to keep the cash cow mooing? Or was it a product of the time? After all, the 2000s did see Jeremy Clarkson call for the mass shooting of public servants on strike. The 2000s did see the racist tirade of Jade Goody on Celebrity Big Brother. And the 2000s did see Johnny Knoxville wear a bikini in Jackass. But now, in present day, Russell Brand isn't the same Russell Brand.
Millions were made in those energy deals with China and the Ukraine.
But let's not talk about that.